Welcome to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista, probably the most entertaining marketing podcast you're going to put in your ears. I'm Jared Walls, associate producer and Stirista's creative copy manager. The goal of this podcast is to chat with industry leaders to get their take on the current challenges of the market, but also have a little fun along the way. In this episode, Vincent and Ajay chat with Miriam Kendall, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Makespace. She explores the wide-ranging role she has with the brand, as well as her time at Under Armour. She also discusses her involvement with the nonprofit Play Like a Girl. Ajay ponders a turtleneck, and Vincent wears a nice suit jacket for once. Give it a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of The Marketing Stir. That's why I'm here. Why else would I be here? Ladies and gentlemen, it's so great to have you. The Marketing Stir brought to you by Stirista. Stirista, identity marketing company. We have our own business data, consumer data. We help you market to that data. Give us your first party data. We will enrich it. If it needs enhancement, if it's garbage, we will make it not garbage. How about that? We have our own DSP. We can help with OTT, CTV. Enough about me. But if you want, please reach out to me, Vincent at Stirista.com. That is how confident I am in our services. I just gave the world, well, most of the world, my email address. The other thing that I'm confident about is this next gentleman. My ride or die, as I describe him. It's a weird thing to describe your CEO. I get it. I know. But he is my co-host on this adventure of the Marketing Stir, the co-founder and CEO of Stirista. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ajay Gupta. What's up, Ajay?
Hey, Vincent. I like your suit jacket today. It's different than your dad shirts.
Yes. Often I do own a lot of dad shirts from this dad section at Kohl's. That's where you get those. There's a whole section that just says, you're a dad now. So just wear a shirt that says Florida on it. Not Disney World, just plain old Florida. I get it. Yeah, I'm dressed up. I'm dressed up for our guest. I'm dressed up for networking events. I just like getting dressed up. It makes me feel like I am back at work and I'm talking to people. I see you didn't get the memo.
No, I did not. I thought you just did it to make me look bad.
Yes. AJ, sometimes you have on a t-shirt that says Stirista Tennis and that's it, but that's you. You're the brains of the operation. I have to make up for it with a lot of flair.
Yeah, without a haircut, I'm just going for the CEO look at this point. So
that's it. Next thing you're going to have a hoodie on or a turtleneck like Zuckerberg and Jobs.
Oh,
that's okay. I don't need you to dress nice. I need you to keep doing what you're doing as our CEO.
Well, I think we have an exciting guest today who might match your energy.
I love it. That's why I had to dress up. I'm extra energetic today. I'm extra happy to have this guest on. Not only because I like talking to her, but I love this company, Makespace. It is called Makespace, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about it. And we have the Senior Vice President of Marketing with us today. Calling in from my old neck of the woods, Port Chester, Greenwich, Connecticut area. Ladies and gentlemen, Miriam Kendall. What's up, Miriam?
Hey, guys. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
We're happy to have you. I can't wait to talk about Makespace. And then I can't wait to tell you about, because you're new to that area. You were formerly a native, New Yorker, right? A Manhattanite, if you will.
We've actually moved around quite a bit. We were in New Jersey right before this, and Baltimore before that, and a few other places around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you've settled on, Greenwich, Connecticut. Love it. I'm from Port Chester, right on the border there. Great schools, great area. I love it. So was that a result of the, current times in 2020, or you always wanted to live there and you said, let's do it now?
I will say that COVID enabled us to move. I have a son who's a senior in high school, and I would have never moved in without COVID because of COVID, everything's up in the air. And so it doesn't really matter where you're going to school.
Yeah, exactly. So enough about that. I want to know about you and Makespace. So tell us and the audience about Makespace, Miriam.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Makespace. And what Makespace is it's a tech-enabled, on-demand storage company. And what does that mean? That means what we do is you make an appointment with Makespace, either on the phone or online. We come out to you. We take all of your stuff that you want to store. We bring it back to a secure storage facility. We take a photo inventory of all your items. We upload it on an app. And when you want something back, you just use the app and we bring it back to you. So we've really revolutionized the whole self-storage industry, tried to make it as seamless and as easy as possible. And in COVID times, it's actually been really wonderful.
Yeah, and I want to touch upon that as well. And I love the concept of this because you don't have to drive. Every movie you see out there or TV show, they're going to like an outdoor storage space, and there's never anything good when you open it. That's where there's like, oh, there's a body in there. Like something's happening in that storage space. So just the fact that you don't have to rent one of those, that you don't have to bring your stuff there, I think is great. And you don't have to rent an entire one for, your old vinyl records, for example.
Yeah, actually, Vincent, we just did some videos for Halloween on scary storage experiences, which is just exactly that. Like those are really spooky, crazy experiences that people have at those dark, dingy places. And there's none of that with Makespace. You never have to visit one if you don't want to.
That's awesome. People have to check that out on makespace.com. And Miriam, tell us about your role specifically. You mentioned Senior Vice President of Marketing, but some of your day-to-day.
Yeah, well, so marketing, as you know, is like very diverse. So I get into the technical aspects of acquisition marketing, from paid social, paid search, affiliate marketing, onto the brand side as well, making commercials for TV as well as videos for YouTube, and PR. I get into partnerships. So just across the board, email, you name it.
Miriam, how did you get into marketing in the first place?
Well, it's funny. I actually never considered myself a marketer until like a few years ago. I started my career in consulting, and I always thought of myself as a customer strategist, which sounds like marketing, but in customer strategy, you actually talk to, people in technology and retail and call centers, and you realize like the number of people that actually touch a customer. And influence that decision to purchase or not purchase your product or service. So like I say, I never really thought of myself as a marketer, but now that I'm in it, it's fantastic.
You worked at one of my favorite shoe brands, Under Armour. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like.
Intense. I loved it. It's super competitive. It's everything moves a mile a minute. And while it's a large company, it operates a little bit scrappy and like a smaller company. They love to like test and learn. It's very like fast moving. It's also like super competitive. So if you wore a Nike shirt on campus, you could just get fired that day.
Wow. That's
a good time for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah, one of my favorite brands as well. So Miriam, tell us about, as much as you can, how was this started, Makespace? Is it like a frustrated New Yorker like myself where there's never space for anything, and he or she was just like, you know what, there has to be a better solution? Talk to me about it.
That's exactly right, Vincent. So our founder,
I am the brains of the operation, Ajay, you see?
So our founder, Rahul Gandhi, and a couple of other co-founders, actually after Hurricane Sandy, had this experience of they had to renovate their places, and so they had to store their stuff. And they realized how awful they experienced it, especially like downtown Manhattan, like where you don't even own a car, so you've got to go rent a car. You got to take your stuff, you got to like wrap it up and pack it, and then you go out to some storage unit in some seedy neighborhood somewhere, and they only have a facility that's twice as big as you want, so you just have to pay for whatever is available at the time, and there's no service whatsoever. It is all on you, and especially for people living in dense cities, it's just such an awful, unpleasant experience, and it can be super expensive to do. But with Makespace, we come to you, we do everything for you, and you only pay for the storage that you use, no matter how much you have, no matter how big or how small. So it's exactly what you said. Like, it was founded out of a horrible experience from our founders.
Yeah. And how has it been through 2020? I have my guess on it and take on it, just again because I see so many people from New York City moving out of Manhattan. I mean, Manhattan being the epicenter and of what COVID was. And people just kind of like, well, I can't enjoy all the restaurants and I pay so much money to live here. As Makespace business increased during this time?
Yeah, I actually feel a little bit guilty. We're doing amazingly well. When COVID first happened, we were all, as the whole world was, kind of nervous about what was it going to do to our business and how would people react. But we were actually very quickly designated an essential service. And so we were able to continue to operate. We tried to operate with hands off, no contact delivery and pickup. But yeah, like you said, like a lot of people were moving back in with their parents. There were, people moving out of cities and people who had expensive leases who just didn't want to pay for them anymore, especially when they felt like cities were kind of dangerous. Just a huge amount of movement. And I think for the storage industry in particular, people weren't really sure what they were going to do. They didn't want to make new long-term commitments, so they weren't signing new leases. So they just really wanted a place to put their stuff while they tried to figure everything out. And so what people would have maybe normally been a short-term store with us, they just kind of left it because it's so easy and convenient just to have it there while they're trying to make decisions for their lives and what's the next chapter for them.
Miriam, how does the pricing work? Is it a SaaS-based model, and how does it compare to somebody using one of those cold, dark, dead body storage?
Dead body storage, yeah.
So I will say that if you add up all the prices that it would take to like rent a car or rent a truck, drive out there, get a place that you have to pay extra for. We also provide like bins and blankets at no cost. So a lot of the supplies are actually paid for. It can actually be much less expensive. It's actually pretty comparable to the self-storage prices anyway, but just with the added convenience, it's incredibly effective. And how we price it, actually, it differs by zip code. So, some areas are harder to get to, like in Los Angeles, the traffic's really bad, or New York City, would be different pricing than like, say, Dallas, Texas, or San Antonio. So we price it by size and by zip code.
Got it. And what's kind of the footprint? Is it national? Is it available in major cities, rural areas?
Yeah, we're now in 31 cities. And in fact, about a year and a half ago, we were just in 4 cities. So we've been expanding really quickly.
That's awesome. Are you available in San Antonio for Ajay and the crew there?
That's right.
Nice.
Hey, maybe if you're lucky, we can get rid of our office space and put everything in.
Actually, a lot of offices are starting to use this as well because they're getting rid of their office space, and also like restaurants are they can't operate at their traditional capacities, so they've got like extra tables and things like that. So we are becoming a really good resource for businesses as well.
Yeah, and we've had many businesses and many guests on the podcast thus far, and they vary, right? There's industries where they were always doing well, now they're even doing better because they're solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like Makespace, but there's others that were doing well and they're not anymore in certain industries. So there's certain industries that are helping. Moving companies in New York City are through the roof. That's an industry where they're growing. So it has an effect, both positive and sometimes and negative. The whole thing is negative, obviously, COVID, but positive effects for business. But Miriam, talk to me about because it's the Marketing Stir, some of the specific marketing channels that Makespace uses and other companies may look to benefit from.
Yeah, so we actually have expanded a lot of our different channels. One of the things that I love about marketing is opening up new channels because, each channel is not exactly predictable, right? So like Google changes their algorithm and everything goes crazy, or Facebook changes something. And so having a lot of different channels open at once allows you to kind of dial levers up and down. So one of the things that's kind of been surprising as we expanded in markets, linear TV. So something that we really hadn't done much of prior to our expansion. We did more on the OTT side, was more targeted, but we've had it's had a huge impact. It's been really successful for us as we've expanded into new markets.
And as you are expanding, is that some of the 2021 goals? Is there a new service that you're going to be offering? Is it the goal to expand even more?
Yeah, we've actually got tons of stuff up our sleeves. I'm pretty excited about what's coming up next. So in addition to new markets, we're looking at different platforms, and they're kind of secretive right now, but some different partnerships that we're partnering with other large companies to expand our footprint. I will tell you a secret. We're looking into even offering our services off of Amazon, which sounds really strange, but we've kind of productized our services into like being able to actually buy bags and then buy a discount with that bag, so they can even be sold on Amazon. So things like that.
That's awesome.
Miriam, one of our producers found out that you actually wrote a top 10 Amazon books, customer relationship. Can you tell us, what prompted you to write the book and what that process was like?
Sure. I will say I'm a contributing author, so not exactly a co-author. It's actually a big, huge book, and it was even used as the textbook for Fuqua Business School at Duke for a time. I had previously worked for a company called Peppers and Rogers Group, and Martha Rogers is on the board there and was a professor at Duke. And so yeah, they wrote a lot of publications around one-to-one marketing. They're kind of the pioneers in the field. So when they're putting together this book, they talked to a bunch of experts in CRM, customer relationship management, and I was one of them, and I was fortunate to be able to contribute to this book.
And can you give us a couple of takeaways from your section of the book that?
Yeah. I'd be happy to. So the book was written a couple of years ago, and a few years ago, and at the time it was one of those things where customer relationship management was really becoming a thing, and it had shifted kind of from a business strategy into more of a technology. And so from someone who's been involved with the area for quite a while, seeing it become like a tech product was really frustrating. So part of what I write about is, technology is a tool to help you with a business strategy. So it needs to be used as a tool, not as the business strategy. So kind of thinking about it that way. The other thing I write about is, becoming a customer-centric organization, especially transforming from a product-centric to a customer-centric organization, is a huge corporate transformation. And it can be very, very overwhelming. So one of the things that I recommend is breaking it down into like learning pilots. So like 90-day learning cycles where you set specific goals, you achieve those goals, you create some momentum, some early wins, and then you move on to the next goal. So I think those two things are kind of the big takeaways I would give.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And that book, again, ladies and gentlemen, is Managing Customer Relationships, a Strategic Framework. And I imagine it's available on Amazon.
I'm sure it
is. So that's also great news about, the potential of, selling the products, the service on Amazon. That would hopefully give it a nice lift, which Amazon does to pretty much everything. So that's awesome.
They do.
That little old company, Amazon, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the, things that surprised you the most while working at Makespace during your time.
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that really surprised me is the culture. It's funny, when you interview at a company, everybody talks about the culture and it's great, but everybody says that no matter where you interview, right? And it's only true at a few places. And this one was actually 100% truthful. Like everybody there, I feel like they're so supportive, and it's just been I don't know, it sounds kind of corny to say, but it really feels like family to me. And I've only been there just a little bit over a year now, and I already feel like, it's home. So that was one thing that surprised me. And I think the second thing that surprised me is, for a storage company, it really is customer centric. They care so much about the customer. And maybe this is tied actually to the culture of the company as well. It's just a very caring type culture. And so every single customer is important to the company. And I have seen our CEO, there'd be a problem with a customer and he would personally call them. He spent hours on the phone talking directly with customers who didn't have a stellar experience, and just to let them know that that's not okay. That's not the way that we do business, and we care about every single customer, and we're going to make it right.
That is, very unique. And it was kind of, you went into a little bit to my follow-up question there. What was kind of like, what sets Makespace apart from other storage companies? Because, and to my knowledge, and again, you'll know way better than me, I haven't heard of anything else like this. You see the storage companies out there, like when you go down the highway, there's billboards, different companies that are there, but that's in the traditional sense as I see it. So what else, as opposed to the culture, having a customer centric, a CEO that gets on the phone, that's the customer service right there is through the roof, the personal touch. What else would you say, Miriam?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that sets us apart is we have a partnership with a company called Iron Mountain, which is a $4.6 billion company that, a lot of people haven't heard of, but they do document storage and shredding and data services for a lot of the Fortune 500 type companies. And they have the facilities to store all of our stuff, which has enabled us to grow from 4 to 31 markets in a year and a half. So they've been amazing. Storage itself is super capital intensive, and so without a partner like Iron Mountain, it would have taken us so much longer to be able to expand like we are, and that's in just geography. We're also able to expand our products and our services. We tag team with them, and so we can offer all of their services to our customers as well. So like document shredding and secure destruction of IT equipment and things like that, we're also able to offer to our consumers. So that's probably the biggest one. It's, there are some smaller competitors, they're more local, that do what we do, but they're none that have our footprint.
And Miriam, as you're going from city to city, how are you getting your kind of marketing out? What are some of the channels that you're focusing on?
Yeah, so we use a number of different channels, everything from direct mail to, we did some stuff with radio, some radio personalities. We offered them free storage, and they talked about their experience with us to make it really authentic. Linear TV, I was talking about. We do YouTube search, paid social. We have some influencers, like affiliates, email, you name it. Like if there's a channel that we haven't explored, I'll be surprised.
Gotcha. Sounds like you guys are pretty open to trying a number of different strategies.
I love it. Honestly, because what works today may not work tomorrow. So having done that research, understanding, having tested things, it just makes us much more nimble and able to pivot as needed.
Yeah. And are there certain kind of software and tools, whether this job or others, that you love that marketers would benefit from?
I think our affiliate platform is pretty cool. So we use Impact as our platform, and that has enabled us to work with other partners. Like anyone can sign up to be an affiliate. So, and it just means that they get some kind of financial reward for selling our services.
And let's talk about marketing. You said you felt like you just started doing marketing just a couple of years ago. What do you love most about marketing?
I think the fast-paced, like ever-evolving nature of it, and the kind of complexity about how the different channels interact with each other. It's funny, if you talk to a CFO, they'll talk about like, oh, display channel's not performing well, or, and they look at it very individualistically, but in reality, it's kind of a portfolio approach. It's the combination of all the different touch points together and how they impact a person's feelings about a product or service, and ultimately creating that behavior to buy or buy more or refer others. But I think it's just the complexity of it, and the number of channels and how they play off of each other, and all the data that we get and how we're able to use that. It's a super fun area to be in.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I've been in marketing now for 20 years, and it's been fun just seeing how it's evolved and changed, and now getting to talk about it a couple times a week on the Marketing Stir, on top of the everyday conversations I'm having with my clients. But it's been pretty cool. So Miriam, you mentioned the culture feels like a family. Were you going into the office before? Is the office in New York City? What was happening there? And then how has Makespace been able to keep up the morale and keep employees engaged during this time?
Yeah, so the office it still is in New York City, down in the financial district. And I was living in New Jersey, and I was commuting in. And it's funny, when I first joined, I thought that I wouldn't be going in 5 days a week just because it was a long commute. But just because I really enjoyed my colleagues and I enjoyed the office environment, I actually never even worked from home on Fridays. I went in every day. And so I was a little bit nervous about when we started working remotely and how that was going to work, because the culture was so strong. But we have someone who's been like our huge culture champion. I think her role has kind of changed from office manager to culture guru. I don't know what her title is, but she's great at it. So she creates Zoom happy hours every day. For my own team, we were meeting every day, but now we're meeting 3 days a week in the morning. And I've heard some people say, oh, you should talk about like personal stuff for the first 2 to 3 minutes of every meeting. I'm like, I think we spend like 15 minutes talking about personal stuff. But, like for Halloween, we all dressed up for our Zoom call in costumes, and it was just really fun. We had off-site, even at my house, and everybody wore masks and we were social distance, but like we found a way to get together. We've really made it work. The team is great. Everybody's been super supportive. And I think it's overthinking about and over communicating, and not just accepting like these are just the meetings that I have to go to, but for me, it's constantly thinking about like, how do we keep up these relationships? And we've got new people starting and onboarding in these times. And you just have to think about, how do we do things differently? How do we make sure we create those bonds with the team?
Before Ajay, your question, I have, what were your team's Halloween costumes? What was it, a theme? Were you guys like, we're all going to be like the Brady Bunch, or we're all going to be whatever, like ninjas? I don't know.
We all did our own thing. I will say I was Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek.
I love that show.
I do too.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. The bebes. Yeah, that's
exactly.
People. Oh man, I love. We could talk. That's a whole podcast where you and I can talk about that show. That's a great costume.
It was fun, but no themes.
No, that would have been great if everyone dressed up like Schitt's Creek characters. That'd be funny. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, so I started watching that show because my daughter's name is Moira, and so everybody would say, hey, you know this show? And it was like, no, I don't know this show. So I had to start watching it. It's pretty good.
It's great. Yeah.
I enjoy it.
So Miriam, what does the marketing team look like? What are some of the key roles within your department?
Yeah, so we have kind of 3 basic parts of the marketing team, actually 4 now. We have the acquisition side, which does, like the paid search and paid social. We have the brand side, which actually helps through the video and the TV commercials and PR, influencers. And then we also have someone we have called a director of lifecycle marketing, but that's really focusing on different customer segments and understanding their needs and the types of messaging that would be most impactful for those groups. And I say almost 4. We're also, like I said, I think I mentioned before, doing things with partnerships now. And so the business development side of that, it's a whole different stream of work, but it also kind of melds nicely into the marketing function.
And do you see I'm guessing based on your business, you see probably a lot of repeat business and people coming back a lot. So how do you kind of keep your current customers engaged with the brand?
Yeah, it's funny because when you think about self-storage, a lot of times people are saying like, don't even talk to them because they're in storage, they're paying for it. You don't want to remind them that they're paying for storage. So we take customer engagement kind of delicately, right? And we make sure that if we're communicating with current customers, we're providing them value because, they don't want just random messages from their storage company unless it's something that they find valuable. But we do try to communicate with them, especially if we're offering new services that they may not know about, that they may benefit from. They're also, they're using their app, they're bringing things back and then sending other things. I think what happens is customers find our service so easy that they think that they're just going to store for like 3 months, but then they say, oh, well, I can just get that one thing back and I can keep everything else in storage and I can send it back whenever I want to. Like, that's way too easy. So then they end up sending more stuff back. So the most thing that we communicate with our current customers that is just, new offerings that we have and any like updates or things that are going on that might be helpful for them. We also have a blog that's really popular and it's all about like decluttering and cleaning and tips. And we get a ton of traffic to that site. So we have a monthly newsletter. So we'll send out some articles and some content from the site.
Well, for that blog and information, just go right to makespace.com. That's something, the decluttering and the organization, that's something that's huge just in general right now. But, you were talking about Schitt's Creek and a Netflix show. There's a lot of Get Organized is another one on there. So anyway, we could just talk about Netflix shows all day, Miriam, on this podcast. But I also, let me switch gears because there are topics that we love to cover and they don't have to do with marketing, but we love talking about these themes just because of Starista's involvement, Ajay's involvement, myself as well. The nonprofit fundraising sector. You've been involved with Play Like a Girl for many years. Talk to us about your involvement and talk to us about that organization.
Yeah, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's very supportive of young women in sports and also in STEM. We've kind of taken a little bit of an angle, but because so many women or young girls are not getting involved in the sciences and math and engineering type programs. And I think we found that it's kind of similar to sports. They get to like that middle school age and they just don't feel comfortable or they feel like there's stigmas attached to it. And so part of Play Like a Girl's mission is to kind of break through those stigmas and like give the girls the confidence to be able to stay in sports and go into some of these kind of male-dominated disciplines. Because there's so many research studies that show that girls who play in sports and play on especially team sports, they do so much better in business. There's so many life lessons about playing on a team and working together that you just don't get if you're not on a sports team.
I agree with that. That's and you've been part of the organization in what capacity as far as just believing in it, donating to it, being part of it?
Yeah, I was also a board member. They have a national board of directors for 2 years, and I was recently, and just supportive of it always. Offering mentorship, attending clinics, playing with the girls.
That's awesome.
It's just a great organization.
That's awesome. That's Play Like a Girl, ladies and gentlemen. We always like to bring attention to that for those guests who are involved in, charitable organizations, which most of them are, which we love and appreciate. So you talked about some of the changes or some of the things that have surprised you at Makespace. What are some of the things, maybe surprised you over your career, but more importantly, what were some shining moments that you would say, of your career thus far as a whole?
Oh, wow.
We get deep on these questions here, Miriam. We don't mess around on the Marketing Stir.
You are. So one of my shining moments, I would say, is after leaving Peppers and Rogers Group, which is a consulting company that focused on one-to-one marketing. This was right around 9/11, so I'm going to age myself. But a friend of a friend knew about Microsoft was going out for this RFP. They wanted to create a affinity program for their OEMs, which basically means kind of like a loyalty program for some of their business clients. So a couple of my buddies and I went after this RFP. I didn't have a company. I didn't really have any legal right to be putting together a response to this RFP. But one thing led to another. We won the contract, and we won against Bain, Mercer, Digitas, and one other company. And it was me and my band of like 5 consultants that used to work at Peppers and Rogers Group. And so we didn't even have like literally the legal right to be bidding on this. So they ended up putting us through Kelly Services because they had a preferred vendor relationship with Microsoft. And so we did this project. It was hugely successful. I mean, it actually created billions of dollars for Microsoft. And it was just, 5 of us on our own kind of creating this thing. So that was a huge win. It was also the impetus of me starting my own company, which I had for 13 years, because that was our first client. And then our second client was AMD, and it just kind of went on from there. But that was, it was a huge moment for me.
That's awesome.
And Miriam, one of the questions we like to ask, sort of the staple question here, is I'm sure with your job title, you get a lot of junk messages, especially on LinkedIn, right?
I do.
We would love to know what kind of some of your pet peeves are in those messages, and kind of one that gets through and gets a reply from you.
Yeah, so one of my pet peeves is my middle name is Washington. And so sometimes it comes up as my first name is Miriam Washington. So whenever someone just writes to me and says, hey, Miriam Washington, I know they don't know me. I know I'm part of an auto dialer or something, but it's not personal at all. So if they haven't done their research, if they don't know who Makespace is, a lot of times people also try to treat us like a retailer, and we're just a very different type of service. So if they don't know anything about the business, it's just pretty annoying. The other thing I find annoying is sometimes people get kind of aggressive and kind of mean. Like, you haven't responded to me. Like, this is my 3rd message. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm busy. Or maybe I'm ignoring you for a reason. But the things that do get my attention, or, if they offer like content or something helpful, or I noticed on your site that such and such could be improved, or, if they're very specific and they offer something of value, if they know someone that I know, that always helps. But I think just knowing kind of the company and kind of the things that we're going through, I could get on these pet peeve things forever, but like another pet peeve is just assuming that they know what my problems are. Like, are you having problems with lead gen? Like, no, actually I'm not, But when they just talk to you about problems that they're like, I know you're having problems. Everybody's having problems with this. You don't know me.
Yeah, I think, Miriam, if you were born in Texas, Miriam Washington could be your first name.
Yeah.
I lived in Dallas for a few years, but not born there.
So kind of one other question for you related to more personal side of things. How's the pandemic been for you? Pick up any new hobbies, anything interesting you've been doing on the side?
Yeah, well, we did move during the pandemic, was quite an adventure. We were actually homeless for a month, which was kind of interesting. But we stayed out of different hotels all over the kind of the East Coast. So that was kind of fun. I spent a lot of time with my dog, who has become very codependent upon me. I always say I can never go back to the office or she's going to have a meltdown. She's always by my side. But it's just been nice to be with family. I've got 3 kids and husband and lots of pets. And just it's been nice now that we're settled into our new house.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you had like a real life Schitt's Creek going on.
Yeah, I know, right?
Actually.
That's
just like those hotels.
Yeah, good reference, AJ. See, you are watching the show. I love it. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because now is like a point where, I have a question about consulting too, but let's get to the personal side. What have you been watching? Schitt's Creek, right? Is that something that's been passing the time?
Yeah.
Books that you're reading. It could be a business book that you read that helps, that you've been doing to pass the time. Should everyone just get a dog and move? Like what do you recommend?
Everyone should get a dog, but everyone should not move.
Should not move, yeah.
Well, if you're going to use Makespace, you can move, but it's a lot of chaos. Let's see. So one audiobook I've listened to recently is Start With Why, which is, I think it's a classic. It's actually really, really good. And I think for all marketers, especially kind of like in turbulent times where people are just like chasing the fad things, I think just kind of bringing you back to the fundamentals of why you're in business, what problems are you solving? I think you said this earlier, Vincent, and it's really important to be doing a service for people. So I think that's a really good one. I just started watching The Good Place.
Oh
with Kristen
yeah, I
Bell.
wanted to see that. Kristen Bell, Ted Danson, those two are TV royalty. I want to get into that too. Michael Shore's the same one who created The Office and everything.
I've been watching that with my 8-year-old, and it seems to be appropriate. Schitt's Creek a little less appropriate, but
That's awesome. And then I totally see the frustration with moving. My wife and I, we just moved, but within New York City. We stayed in New York City, stayed in our neighborhood of Tribeca that we have been here for 10 years. But it's frustrating. It's a lot of time, especially we have small children. And we had a babysitter come in for 6 hours on Saturday. We rarely do that on the Saturday where, hey, stick them with a babysitter, but we did, and we were able to get stuff done, hang pictures, everything. But we took advantage of the lower, quote unquote, lower rents that New York City's having right now. So, but it is a pain to move. I wanted to go back to just something, because we talked about marketing and your roles now, but what do you miss about consulting? Is there, what did you like about consulting?
I loved, this is funny, my personality's kind of changed over time, but I really loved the structure of consulting projects. There were like very specific deliverables. There was a time frame. There were milestones. And so you knew when you were successful. When you work, I call it client side still, but when you work for a company, everything's a little bit more fluid. And sometimes you're going forward, sometimes you're going backwards. And it's a little bit more, Makespace is actually great with this, but in general, I think client side is a little more kind of politicized, and there's politics going on. And so there's lots of things to weigh in. But when you're consulting, it's very objective, and it feels like this is the right way to do things. And you can see problems, I think, a little bit more clearly when you're a little bit removed from it. So I do miss those aspects of it. But I will say, like, having worked for kind of a couple startups now, like, I've really learned to kind of roll with it, which was not my style before. I will say I was not a roll with it kind of girl. And I like my structure. I like my budgets. But to this day, like, I'm still like very particular about my goals, and I'm very particular about budgets. Like, I tell the team, we will never, ever miss a goal. We will never miss a budget, unless there's a lot of like lead time and we socialize it well ahead of time. But yeah, that's what I miss the most.
Nice.
Miriam, it's been great having you on the podcast, and love your energy and your smile. For those of you who will watch this on video, how do you kind of keep your spirits up, and how do you kind of go about keeping happy?
Thanks. Sometimes I fake it. But it tends to work pretty well. I scream and complain a lot to my husband after. But no, I mean, generally, I really, really enjoy what I do. I love, my team is amazing. The management at Makespace is really, really incredible. I feel so fortunate to be where I am. And also, I think it's just kind of always looking at the bright side of things. Like, life's going to throw you curveballs all the time. It's just what happens, right? And especially if you're someone who's like kind of ambitious, and you like to take risks, and you like to push the envelope and do things differently, you're just going to constantly be on that in that world, right? So I think you just have to always look at the bright side and how to make things work and how to be creative if they're not working, how to turn things around. But I think that's part of the fun of life and what I do.
Yeah, I agree. I try to live life like that as well. Stay happy. I was class happiest 1996, Portchester High School. And that's great. Miriam, our new friend, Miriam Kendall, ladies and gentlemen from Makespace. Check out makespace.com. Reach out to Miriam on LinkedIn. But you heard some of her requirements, right? So take it easy, learn something about her. Don't call her Miriam Washington. That is her middle name. But this has been awesome, Miriam. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Miriam Kendall. I'm Vincent Petrofessa. That's Ajay Gupta. This has been another episode of Starista's The Marketing Stir. Thank you and have a great day. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Stir podcast by Starista. Please like, rate, and subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, email us at themarketingstir@starista.com. And thanks for listening.